and many eco things. Just like last year, I checked, it was August when we talked last time. So it's been
Okay.
just about a year. We're catching up on all your projects and doing a little review. Thank you so much for joining again, Iain.
Well, thank you for asking me back. Yeah, it's fun. Thank you.
Wonderful. So you started this project about 10 years ago, is that right? Doing an eco house?
That's right. Yeah, we moved out here about 11 years ago, and we were living in the small back house while we were doing the design and the build of the main house. Yes. Yeah.
That's that's awesome. We want to talk about a lot of the wonderful sustainability features that you're doing with the house, but before we start that, let's talk a little bit about cleanup because I'm focused on cleaning up the beaches, getting plastic and trash out of the waterways from World
Yeah.
Ocean Day, which was June 8th, until Umi no Hi, which in Japan is Marine Day, July 22nd. So tell me
Okay.
a little bit about the cleanups that you do because you're right there on the water.
Yeah, well, yeah, as you say, we're lucky that the beach is right in front of us, so we're there every day. So we do see the trash arriving kind of on a daily basis. So basically, the kids, our children, every now and then they clean up or they're told to clean up. So we go along the beach tidying up. One of the main problems, unfortunately, is local people burning trash regularly on the beach, which is that maybe creates the biggest problem. So I think it's very different from the sea trash. We don't have as, although there was a picture of the nets, we don't have the fishing tackle problem, which of course is one of the main problems in the sea on beaches.
Yeah.
So
And I'm showing the picture. This is from your garden. You can see Lake Biwa. So it's such a big lake that it is kind of like a beach, right? You have almost waves coming in if the wind is high, and it kind of feels like your beachside there. Is that right?
absolutely, yeah. 3 weeks ago, we had a very strong onshore, which is quite unusual, kind of storm with large waves, and all the coast was littered with about half a meter of like detritus, which was from the other side. And one of the main problems was that they don't manage the washi, so the long reeds as they used to. They don't cut it and use it as they used to. So the detritus kind of builds up, and that washes out when there's flooding and the wind's in the right direction. So we actually had to get the local guy with the bulldozer and actually help us pack it all up for the city to take it away. So that happens about maybe twice a year, or if there's a typhoon, of course, that causes a lot of trouble. And it's not just bamboo, of course, there's plastic bottles and lots of other plastics in there which have to be separated before
Yeah.
it's taken away. Yeah.
And one of the interesting things, you're not on the sea, but you found this plastic netting. And this is, of course, in the sea. This is a big problem. It catches a lot of marine life and kills them because they're caught in the net. But even on Lake Biwa, you have this plastic netting, and it
Yeah.
didn't catch marine life, it caught snakes.
Yep, I don't know why. Maybe it smelt of fish, possibly.
Oh,
Yeah, there were
wow.
how many? Was it two snakes in there? I rescued no three snakes. So I rescued two of them, I think, and unfortunately one had died.
Wow.
Not a nice way to go, but yeah, of course it highlights the problem of plastic and wildlife fatality. So yeah,
That those, if it's made of plastic, it just lasts for hundreds of years. We don't even know how
yeah,
long yet because plastic is kind
no,
of a new problem, right?
yes, exactly, yeah. I have no idea. Yeah. Of
It's
course, there is fishing
crazy.
on Lake Biwa, so there is netting around. Yeah.
So I've been listening to a lot of the Ocean Impact group which does a lot of their work in Australia, but around the world, and talking about solutions to
Hmm.
environmental impact of the ocean. And one of the things they're targeting is knitting. They had some great solutions about also seaweed. So, because Lake Biwa is so big, do you have seaweed in Lake Biwa?
There's a kind of sea grass, similar, similar to the ocean, but the that was wiped out 3 years in our area. It was wiped out. The sea floor, sea floor, the lake, the lake bed became completely barren, and it hasn't come back yet. So I don't know what's going on with that. But
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that would have the same properties as the seaweed that they're making the edible plastic in. But yeah, that's a wonderful solution.
Yeah,
And
and it absorbs carbon. It's like, yeah, growing. It creates oxygen. There's so much potential for seaweed. I'm so excited. I
yes, yeah,
just wondered if it would be possible in the lake as well.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
go ahead.
Yeah, I was just saying, yeah, like I say, there is like the sea grass looks almost the same. Sorry, lake grass, I guess you'd call it. And yeah, it can draw down huge. I think the certainly in the sea, it has a huge potential for drawing down lots of carbon. Yeah, that I think that's getting more and more attention actually, which is great.
Yeah. You also had a little quiz, I noticed online. You were asking what this collection on top of the water was, and I thought maybe it was sun
Oh yeah.
cream. But can you reveal what is it right now?
Yeah, it's the pollen. It's the powder from the pine trees, which are along the beach. You can just see the shadow. So I'm actually under the pine trees, and as the breeze was coming, it's like the trees were literally smoking. It was, yeah, first time I'd seen it actually in 10 years. So yeah, quite interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about your house design. Now, for anybody who didn't catch our talk last year, tell us a little bit about your house remodel, how you wanted to design it. You were talking last year about wanting to create an eco house, and you had certain features that
Yeah.
you were aiming for. Can you run us through those?
Sure, yeah. Well, the picture is it's quite revealing. The design that we did was started with the roof. We got the angle. It's like 29 degrees. You can see. So we wanted to maximize that we wanted that to maximize the solar efficiency of panels, and that's where the rest of the house followed the pitch of the roof and the size of the roof. Um, Other than that, the other main feature was that it was going to be open, open design, so free flow of air for ventilation, and in the winter, the heat from the stove would go, circulate around the whole house. And the other feature, I guess, which is, I guess, connected to the open plan, is lighting. Very important to have a lot of light. I think natural light. So all these things together, kind of helping to reduce the need for energy or the efficiency of the house for its own power. So
That's awesome. Has
yeah.
there been anything that was in your original design that now that you've lived in it for a while, you thought, oh, that was really good, or I wish we had done this instead?
Yeah, I was very conscious of the amount of concrete going into the house, particularly as we couldn't secure a low carbon, like an alternative, so eco friendly concrete. So I was very tight, catchy, the word, I guess, on the height of the foundations, because you can see maybe from the picture there is a basement. It's about a meter, 1.8 meters high. It should really be 2 meters, but I cut down just to reduce the amount of concrete. So that's one thing. I mean, it's still usable, the basement, but it's just a little bit, bending down. The other main feature mistake really is that the solar inverter, all the electronics are in our pantry. And the pantry is designed, of course, to keep cool in the summer and to keep, a good temperature in the winter as well. So it's fully insulated. It's facing the back of the house. But of course, the inverter, which is inside the pantry, creates heat. So that should really have been moved to the back door, really, the back entrance, I think. That's the biggest mistake we made, I think.
But you made so many great changes to the original design, even changing it to a front location, front facing. We
Ah,
talked about this
yes.
last time. The original pension had the back of the building to the view. It just seemed insane.
Yeah, it was facing. It was just facing. Wasn't facing anywhere. It was just facing parallel to the coast, really. Yeah. So, yeah, we bought the house to the front, and as I mentioned, its aspect is facing almost due south. It's actually south east. Yeah. So it's almost perfect, and for the view, it is perfect.
Wonderful. Well,
Yeah.
it's funny because since we talked, I realized that when I visited Hawaii, in Waikiki, one of the most famous hotels, all of their most expensive rooms do not have a sea view, and that's because in the 1800s, most of their tourists were coming by ship, and the last thing they wanted to look at was the sea. So so they
Interesting.
had to retrofit all of the rooms to make some of the servant rooms, which looked at the sea, become the more expensive suites. So that
Wow.
was such an interesting bit of history. I
Yeah.
don't
How
know if
times
that was
change.
true for your house too. Maybe that was their
Mm,
plan, not to look at the water.
Possibly. Yeah, that's right. Well, yeah, we have another problem now. The trees, the many trees we planted, are kind of obscuring the view. But my image is that the trees, where they are, they're growing, and soon we'll be able to see under the canopy. That's my hope. So, yeah.
Wonderful.
So
For anybody interested, just to point out, you do have a great website, and it's so nice to see our talk there from last year as well. So Shiga Echo House Project. What's the URL? It's a little bit difficult to see there.
well, it's WordPress, and then IF Echo House 66. Yeah, WordPress Echo House 66. But yeah, you should also mention that I don't post to it very much. maybe
It's
after today.
hard to keep up with everything. But you sent me
Yeah,
some great photos, so hopefully people can see a lot of updates today in our talk.
yeah,
Let's talk about animals, because you're using animals in your gardening and using that balance between growing food and having proteins. Self-sufficient proteins was something you were aiming for, right?
yes, that's right. Yeah, well, as we know, the animal protein has a very high impact compared to plant-based protein. So my idea is that really almost all of our protein comes from what we produce. So yogurt, eggs, milk, and and occasionally meat. So yeah, that's the idea behind it. Really, is to just try and make the most of the space we have, and to have lower our normal impact as much as possible using the space that we have. Yeah. So
So I think last time you were talking about having goat's milk, 2 liters every
yeah,
day. Is that right? Are you
it
still
is.
able to get that?
Yes. Yep. Unfortunately, well, yeah, we're very lucky. But we have a kind of a rhythm, a cycle, and it works out. Um, Twice a week I make yogurt from the same culture. Once a week we sell milk to a local lady. I think though most of that goes to her dog. And we do freeze it occasionally. So if and when the goat goes offline, we'll still have supply of milk. So
Wow.
and junket.
Junket.
Cinnamon. Do you know junket?
No, what's junket?
Well, you just add a kind of gelatine, a kind of a thing that makes it into a jelly, and you just add cinnamon, turmeric, or anything with honey or sugar, and it just makes almost an instant pudding from the milk.
Wow.
That's it. Yeah.
Well, I'm showing on the bottom right, you made halloumi, which is a kind of cheese,
That's right.
cheese-like dish. Is that right?
Yeah, I've sometimes successful, but yeah, I've tried a number of different cheeses. Hard cheese I haven't managed to perfect yet, but the halloumi is relatively easy. Yeah, it's kind of takes a long time. It takes a couple of hours, but you don't need to mature it particularly, and yeah, it's has been very successful. And the thing with halloumi is you can actually cook with it. You boil it. Once it's made, you boil it, and that uh, stops it from melting when you use it in cooking. So you can make things like burgers or a lot of vegetarian dishes with it. So yeah,
Wow, wild.
yeah.
And you use the chickens and the goats as a part of the farming. Can you tell us how that works?
Well, they can. They're good at keeping areas clear of weeds if you need them. They of course fertilize. The chickens are very good at digging up. If you have a new veggie spot, they're good at mixing and adding compost naturally. But yeah, they're again, it's all cyclical. We have to keep an eye on where the goats are. Overgrazing, of course, is still a can be a problem. Um, and with the chickens as well, they can be very destructive actually. So they do have to be kept fairly controlled. Yeah,
Yeah.
manner.
I think Thomas Klepfer, who's an organic farmer in the Hiroshima area down here, he talks about the chicken tractor and moving them area to area to scratch up the ground and to fertilize and to eat some of the weeds
Yes.
and bugs. And he also uses goats to clear weeded areas. He lends out the goats as well. Do you ever lend out your goats to people who have a weed problem?
Uh, yeah, I've seen that, but no, I haven't. No, unfortunately, I would. Yeah, I would love to because it would reduce how much farmers are constantly cutting. Using
Yeah.
their machines. But yeah,
And
it's a
this
nice
is
idea.
a problem in Japan as we have an aging society and a lot of akiya, abandoned houses as well. Wouldn't it
Hmm.
be great to lend out your goats to some of the akiya to keep the weeds down from around the akiya, the abandoned houses?
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. The one problem though is when land is abandoned, one of the first vegetations to kind of get become dominant are the very high like pampas grasses they have in Japan, and unfortunately the goats they will not touch that. So that's a problem.
How about bamboo? Because bamboo often takes over the akiya, the abandoned houses too, right?
Yeah, the goats can't clear bamboo. They will eat it, but they won't clear it. No. So there's kind of limitation. Many permaculturalists use kind of a mix of animals. They'll send in cows, cattle, or first to trample down. Then maybe they'll send in horses or goats to eat a little bit further down, and then pigs to, and then finally, I think the chickens are always last. I think, but yeah, we've only got
I
goats and chickens.
I mean, they're so versatile. On the top picture, you said you were kind of repurposing a rice paddy and
Yeah.
using the goats and chickens, trying to grow vegetables after the land has been full of water for such a long time. It must be a process. How's it going?
It's well, it's still a bog. There's a lot of sato imo. They've survived, so we're growing a lot of sato imo at the moment. I'm still looking for kind of crops that will do well in waterlogged soil. But I think once the summer, true summer comes and it dries out a bit, I'm going to work on the soil. Actually, try to mix in some I don't know, maybe wood chips or something to try and dry it out and to reduce the acidity. And then maybe next year will be more versatile. We'll be able to grow a wider range of crops. But at the moment, it's just sato imo. So
Sweet
yeah,
potato, which is so high in nutrients. It's such a
yes,
wonderful food. Yeah.
yeah,
I saw your picture in the snow and how your chickens were not impressed with the snow at all. They didn't
no,
like it, huh?
that's right. Especially if the avalanche from the roof, they've been buried a couple of times. They're no fatalities. They're fine. But yeah, it's just a case of again managing what nature throws at us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you
So
usually get so much snow, or was that unusual this year?
no, we're getting much less snow than usual. We're right next to the mountains, so we will get we. There has been a history. It does snow here regularly, but the heavy snow like this is becoming much rarer. So this year we only had I think one lot of snow from these photos. Yeah, but yeah, so becoming
Um,
rarer, but we
yeah.
still get it.
You can see the design of your garden even in the winter there. So you're still doing your pond? What do you keep in your pond? Is it fish?
Yeah, we have a medaka, and basically it's just wildlife. Lots of frogs. Of course, that attracts snakes, and we have one at the moment. One turtle, I think, terrapin, freshwater turtle, is in there. But yeah, a lot of wildlife, and of course soon dragonflies, tombo. So yeah, it's great. And the one half is kind of a wetland, which during the middle of the summer, when there's much less water, we connect the grey water of the house to that area, and it can manage about 50% of our grey water without becoming overwhelmed, as it were.
It looks like you have a nice variety of shrubs and vegetables and different plants. Do you
Yeah,
try to have a variety in terms of repelling bugs or attracting the right kinds of bugs? Is that right?
yeah, that's right. Yeah, mostly attracting bugs, and I figured, if it's natural, then the the pests will be in balance. Yeah, you can see from the wall. There's kind of a quite a mix. There's try to get a variety of environments for the animals. So even cut grass can provide a good environment for some animals. So it's important to have the variety. If you're cutting grass, if I'm cutting grass, I certainly won't cut everything. I'll just cut part of it, and then in the next 3 weeks, I'll go back and cut the other area and leave, what was cut before. But yeah. So basically, all the space we have, I try, it's either basically producing some kind of food or having some positive effect in terms of providing flowers or shelter for the local variety of wildlife.
And it looks like you have repurposed tires and you're doing
Yeah.
rain catchment as well as a green roof. Can you talk about those three elements?
Yeah, well, I while kind of planning the house, I watch a lot of house design programs, mostly. So yeah, building houses with tires and compressed earth is a great way to build, and also, of course, in this case, for landscaping, it's a wonderful use of the resources. And yeah, those tires have now disappeared virtually. We can't You can't see them at all. So it was very successful. And yeah, they were also used around the drainage, the natural drainage system around the house, which yeah, I don't have pictures of that, but we used tires just as a barrier to create a kind of a natural, uh, not reservoir, a natural water sink for the water coming off the roof, which we didn't, any water we don't capture just drains away naturally, usually.
Does
During a
that
typhoon,
does
yeah.
that help to keep the house cooler by holding that water in the tires from the roof?
Yeah, I mean that's the idea. If you can let water drain away naturally, it will stay where, it will stay in the soil longer rather than trying to get rid of it all at once, putting it into a drainage system. I think it's much better to have as much, natural drainage as you can. We do have flooding. It Because of that, I have during a typhoon, I have to go out and fix pipes to the house and reroute the water to a drain to stop flooding. But generally, yeah, the water just stays where it is mostly.
Wow. And all of these tires, have you had this many cars, or are these from friends, or where do you get all your tires?
No, actually, we're lucky. Well, there's a guy in the village. He's a young guy. He does custom, those kind of Yankee racing, kind of Yankee cars. So you probably, I don't know if you noticed that the wheels are actually, the tires are actually much wider, higher than normal, wider than usual, which was perfect for our needs. So he was more than happy for me to take as many as I wanted. So if anyone's building a house and they want some tires, they're welcome. Yeah.
That's great. One thing we find a lot doing our cleanups is styrofoam from the buoys, the floaties on the oyster industry, keeping the floating oyster beds afloat. Also in the fishing industry, also at the beaches, separating the swimming areas. Can tires be repurposed for floating things? I was thinking of alternatives. They used to use the glass balls, and I was wondering, could other materials work? Because tires are water resistant and they hold air. I
Yeah.
wonder, might be an
Well,
idea
they,
there.
they tires sink, so they couldn't be used. I think the
Right.
materials and also they contain a lot of steel
Okay.
wire. So I think they're actually probably quite difficult to recycle. So,
Yeah.
it goes back to this closed loop, the whole mindset of we have to change the whole manufacturing processes so things are easier to repurpose or recycle,
Yeah.
upcycle. Yeah. So, but I think at the moment, unfortunately, no.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I like your idea of using it in the garden and building up the garden, and then the rain would repurpose down as it cascades down. That's a nice idea.
yeah, that's right.
Tell us about the green roof. What is the idea behind green roof, and what are the benefits of it?
Well, again, from watching, just from research and just watching uh, house design programs, green roofs are extremely good at insulating. And I think that was one of the main reasons why if you put them on houses, they're extremely beneficial. Uh, so for me, it was just a case of I wanted to try to do it, and I had roof space, which is in this case from the photo you can see it's the shed, uh, and that's why I got onto developing green roofs. I think they're wonderful. Yeah, absolutely. And the added benefits, of course, are they support biodiversity. They soak up water, they collect water and release the water naturally, very slowly. Of course, capture carbon, and they can. I think they do. If they're made properly, they will last a long time. They will actually last longer than a regular roof, maybe, which needs changing. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. And also insulation, right? So it keeps it cooler or warmer under the green roof. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. It's like I said, the for houses this is a even more beneficial because you're actually saving energy. But in this case, for the shed, it is very cool in in the summer. It's a huge difference. Yeah, so they're very effective at insulating buildings.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I really want to put a green roof above our shed, because it's right next to the house, and it has that clear plastic on it from
okay.
the previous owner. So it just really heats up, and it's right next to the house. So I think if I can do a green roof there, it would really cool that whole section of the house.
Absolutely, it will. When you're making a green roof, you have to be careful. Think about the weight, so you have to make sure the structure is strong enough. And but that's really the only limitation. And if the pitch is too steep, then maybe not so suitable.
Right.
But probably most roofs like that, outdoor roofs, are fine. So
Okay,
yeah,
yeah. I might get your advice a bit more specific on my roof later.
yeah, pleasure.
Let's talk about some of the things that you've planted that are multifunctional. So for example, the jute and the loofah I found really interesting. Can you tell us about that?
Well, yeah, well, as many will know, jute can be used for as a fiber for clothing, uh, and yeah, it's a wonderful it's a great salad. You can use it as a salad or a vegetable. So I only started growing it last year, but it's growing again this year, and who knows? Maybe I'll try to make a little bit of fiber, see if it works. But yeah, so yeah, it's
Wow,
good.
what a great idea. What's it called in Japanese, do you know? Or where did you get the seeds?
I forgot.
Yeah.
Sorry, I forgot.
That's
But
okay.
yeah, I did get the
I'll do some
seeds.
research as well. Yeah, what a great idea. Something you can use the fiber of for making fabrics, but also you can eat it and it's nutritious and it grows well and it catches carbon. I love these multifunctional great alternatives, right?
That's right.
Awesome.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and like you mentioned, we have the loofahs. So we have again space, save space, good for urban environment, creating shade for windows, and you can at the end of the season you can create have these loofahs for your kitchen or bathroom. Great.
And here you have like a typical sponge next to the loofah, so to show that you can use them in the same way. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah, yeah. And apparently, I mean, you can eat them before they become fibrous, like this. But I've never actually harvested one to eat yet. I'll try this year.
Wow.
Yeah.
And in other things that you're growing in the garden, which I think is really interesting. So you've got all these pots of water with some ferns growing on it. Do they have fish inside to eat the
Yeah,
mosquitoes? Is that right?
that's right. Yeah. Traveling around Southeast Asia, you see this everywhere. In the cities, you see these. They're really lovely to have. They have a cooling effect. They support, a huge variety of insects and grubs. These particular ones, they have lily, lilies in one of them, and the other has just medaka, the fish. Yeah, and in the middle, you can see the photo. You can see baby saplings. These are willow saplings. So, which I hope to pass on to friends around in the community. I hope.
Yeah. Wonderful. Let's talk about the other self sufficiency that you have, some of the other foods from your garden. So, you've been making some fig jam. You've got some
Yes,
great fig trees, huh?
we do. But again, actually, most of the figs are from the community. So, because many, I don't know why, but so many fruit trees are just unharvested, come the end of the seasons. So, yeah, we the really good figs come not from our garden, but from around the local area.
Wow.
At the moment, we're fighting with biwa. We have a lot of, I think, laquat, way too many biwa fruit. So we're making biwa jam at the moment. Oh, yes, you have everything. Yeah.
I got that one ready. So biwa, you can also make biwa liquats into jam. Is that right as well?
Yes, yeah. With a lot of, well, it needs vanilla. Well, the recipe we use vanilla and, yeah, ginger. Vanilla, ginger, loquats. So very nice. Yeah.
Wow, wonderful.
And
This is another thing about aging society, like you mentioned, getting fruit from your neighbor. I hear this a lot for people living in the rural areas, that their neighbors have fruit trees, but they don't have enough energy or, interest in getting all the fruit off, so it just falls and rots. So what some groups are doing is going around offering to pick it and then give the owner as much as they want and then taking the rest to sell or to use for themselves. So
yeah,
it's nice to hear this kind of innovation going on.
yeah, wonderful idea.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I'm sure there are apps out there, but of course, a good app would be for a city, particularly, would be to locate all the fruit trees around the, the area, so people can forage in the cities as much as they want. That'd be quite a nice app for someone to develop or to share if it's already developed.
That's a great idea. I love that. Because especially now, I think we know that a lot of people are food insecure, that a lot of people have been laid off during
Yeah,
coronavirus. So if people have food growing in their garden they're not using, we want to deal with food waste issues. Definitely.
yeah, yeah. And again, it's a thing. It's a wasted resource. It's a shame. Although, of course, crows and wildlife don't waste anything that drops. In terms
Yeah.
of
And it's
food
nice
security.
that at least if it does drop, it'll compost and become part of dirt. It'll become part of nature again, which is not the worst thing, but it'd be nice
No.
to use that for people who need it, right?
Yes, that's right. Yeah, yeah,
You had another picture, late growing tomatoes. So you had tomatoes in autumn, which is usually a summer vegetable. And I don't know what the
yeah.
yellow is. Is that a kind of squash?
No, they're tomatoes,
Oh,
yellow
wow.
yellow tomatoes. Yeah. So we have
So you,
quite a few varieties.
So you have a long season for tomatoes. That's my favorite vegetable to grow because we
Yeah.
eat so many in our family that I love growing tomatoes and basil and just keep
Yes.
going, just keep eating it. I wish I could grow it all year.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, this is the first year I did it. They just keep they in the summer they do die down quite a bit, and I think a lot of people think maybe that's as I did. That's the end. Might as well pull it up and use the space for something for the winter or autumn. But this time I just left two or three of the vine or plants, and they just kept producing through to November, and yeah, and then you have at the end you have all the green tomatoes which will never ripen. And you can use those for chutney. Green tomato chutney is wonderful. So yeah, and
Awesome.
now because so many fell, now that particular vegetable bed is now pushing up a whole load of tomato plants for this year.
That's
So
great.
yeah.
Yeah, it's all going full cycle without too much work in your garden. That's what we
Well,
should all aim for.
that's the
Perfect.
idea. Yeah, work with the cycle, and hopefully nature can do most of the hard work. So yeah. Well, is it the pitchfork farm? They do no tilling, so that's the ultimate in farming. Is yeah, no plowing at all. So wonderful.
Yeah, that's Fukuoka Sensei, right? From Shikoku
Yeah,
with his
fantastic.
what is it? One grain revolution, one straw revolution,
Yeah,
his book. And I remember reading it when I was in California. And some people saw me reading it and said, I've read that book. I love his ideas of just throwing seeds out there and letting nature take over.
yeah,
It's awesome.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah. So
Great.
it's happening in that field I took over. Anything extra from this garden goes into that field. If it survives, that's good. If it doesn't, that's okay too.
Yeah. Let's talk about eggs and your children being involved in all the chores, because you have gardens, you have animals to tend, you have quite a few chores going on. How engaged and active are your kids as they grow up? I saw your daughter was holding a big bullfrog, so they're obviously comfortable with wild animals being around.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. Have they lost interest in helping out, or are they okay?
Yeah, do you want me to be honest?
Yeah.
Yes, as they reach their teenage, yeah, they tend to, yeah, the novelty wears off and it becomes a chore. So it moves from being an adventure to a chore.
Yeah.
But the idea
Which
is,
I hear from other people who've moved into the countryside, and the kids are so helpful and so enthusiastic. And then as they get older, they're like, no, you do that. That's your thing, mom, you know?
yeah. But my hope is, when my grandfather grew food, as most of that generation did, and my parents also grew food, and I'm sure that that affects children. Just being exposed to it, the idea, and hopefully, even though now it does seem a chore, it will be passed on, and they will be growing stuff in their middle years or even earlier. I hope. Yeah.
It's a huge benefit, and just knowing what vegetables are and where meat comes from, they have a direct understanding of the animal to meat connection, which I think a lot of city folk, maybe growing up in the cities, don't quite understand. So it's a much more healthy relationship to your food, and how important it is to think about where your food comes from, and
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
self-sufficiency.
Yes. Yeah. Well, there's the wonderful. There's the a few of these documentaries have focused on the gap between children's knowledge and what they're eating, and they've gone to the classrooms and held up a potato, and they'd say, oh, it's a tomato or a pumpkin or something. It's the knowledge needs to be there, I think, as part of education. I often send my children out, please go and get some kind of herb or vegetable, and they have to, it's like a quiz, they have to know it or be shamed if they don't know it.
Are they also learning, like you guys are doing jamming? Looks like you're pickling eggs when you have a lot of eggs.
Oh,
You're
yes.
making yogurts, you're making cheeses, you're making breads. You're also like marinating olives. You're doing
Yes.
so much with the treatment of food for preservation. Is this
Hmm.
something the kids are also learning?
Well, I hope so. Yes, they made the jam actually yesterday. In the weekend, I gave them, that was it. Just handed over the recipe, and they had to do it. So yeah, I think it's an important skill for the future for sure. Preserving food. Yeah. The biggest disappointment is they really liked the pickled eggs. I was hoping no one would like them, and they would all be mine, but they're very popular with the family, so they
Well,
have to be
how do
read.
you how do you pickle them? What's your recipe?
It's really simple. It's just, well, there's, with there's so many recipes, and you just combine based on what's in the pantry, what we have. But generally, herbs from the garden, so sage, rosemary, thyme, maybe black pepper and vinegar, and a little bit of sugar and salt. That's all. Very nice.
Sounds
Please,
awesome.
please try.
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to be vegan, but if I had
Ah,
chickens with
yes,
my own eggs, then I
yes,
might think about it. That's a very different solution to the problem, right? If you have your own animals making your own eggs, then you're cutting down a lot of the carbon of the
yeah.
factory system, right?
Yes, and it's a genuine solution to a problem. We have at some stages we have too many eggs, so it's a really good way to do, to solve that problem. Yeah,
So do you boil the eggs first and then pickle them? They're not
that's
raw
right.
eggs, right? Yeah.
No,
Okay.
just hard boiled, and then peeled, and then you just have to spike them each side, so juice marinade can go inside. Yeah, so very
Wow,
nice.
awesome. What are you doing in the picture above with your daughter? Is that part of your property?
Oh yeah. Locally, they collect the animal. If there are farms which have animals, they collect the manure and they mix it with the rice husks. So it makes an absolute really perfect, I think, base for digging into the garden, improving the soil. So in this is just in addition to our own manure, but this is kind of better because it's very can go very powdery and can be dug in very easily. From our goats, what comes from our goats is with straw, like straw and manure mixed, so it's a little bit difficult to break up. So this is me just, yeah, it's another free resource. It's great.
Wow. And they give it away for free, do they?
Yeah, you can see dotted around the countryside, these large, huge, monstrous buildings in the middle of, ironically, in the middle of paddy fields. So they've obviously cleared a whole load of paddy fields to produce these collection buildings where all the local farmers bring their rice to be sold, I guess, and processed. And usually at the back of these places, you'll find these deposits of, farm waste.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's free. You just drive in and pick it up.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
When we were talking to avid home gardeners who are growing a lot of food, Flo and Blaze, we're actually going to talk to them in a couple weeks for their 2 years since they started. And one of the suggestions Thomas gave them, who's at Pitchfork Farms, you mentioned,
yeah.
is to, if you need more dirt, because they were filling all these raised beds and paying so much for the dirt from the garden center. And he said you
Oh,
can hire one of these trucks full of dirt or maybe manure and rice bran like this, and it's so cheap. It's like 5,000 yen for a ton or something.
that's
So
right.
I
Yeah.
and that's probably just the delivery charge, right? So there are some
Yes.
real bargains, eh?
Yeah, and I don't know their situation, but if they look around and see a paddy field being cleared, which they're still doing, unfortunately, and changed over to a car park or a house, then you can just approach the lorry drivers, if it's fairly close, and they probably will deliver a load for free, which is what we did actually. They just delivered a truckload of dirt for free. So yeah.
Wow. Well, your garden looks so healthy and you're doing such a good job. But of course, this is a side hustle. You're a full-time university professor, right?
I
So
am. Yeah.
how much time are you able to find a balance? Like you're taking care of animals, you're gardening, you're also teaching full time. How's your work-life balance here?
Well, dare I say the pandemic has improved things a little. So I spend more time at home, of course, teaching online. But well, my schedule is quite light, to be honest, although it's full time. So I'm lucky to be able to spend a lot of time at home. Yeah, that's the short answer. But
Now you have a great variety that in the garden. What are some of the things that are sprouting now that we're going into summer?
yeah, well, this is the probably the biggest crop would be the blackberries. We someone a local was very kind and gave us some blackberry vines some years ago, and they're voracious. They're crazy. How fast they grow. So they could easily take over a garden if you don't manage them carefully, but they do produce an enormous crop. And yeah, now actually it will start in about 1 week. We'll be getting blackberries for about 2 or 3 weeks. So yeah, that's one thing I wanted to do actually. This year I'm doing it. I'm kind of noting down the times of all the different crops we have to see if there's what kind of continuation there is. Because the biwa is now finishing, and now the blackberries will kind of take over from the quats. So yeah, it's good.
Good. One of the other interesting things we haven't talked about yet is your biodiesel car, which smells like tempura. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, we 14 years ago, with a family coming along, an expanding family, we did need a car, so this is our first car. And looking at all the options, the running a car on a second-hand car, old car, on waste oil, basically, it was what I chose. So I did the research, and we came up with the best solution was it's called a two-tank waste vegetable oil VW waste WVO system. So we start and close with diesel, like 2 minutes of diesel, but the rest of the journey, however long or short, will be on the main tank, which is now filled with waste oil. And that's really that's all it is. We heat the oil is heated before it goes into the engine, so that makes the viscosity lower, or yeah, lower. Is it lower or higher? It makes it more less viscous, and yeah, it can be burned just like diesel.
We're just resetting the image right now. Sorry, guys. Um, but yeah, that's crazy. Are you so last time we were talking about the smell, right? Like if you're in the UK and you're using reused oil
That's
from
right.
chip shops, then it might smell like fish and chips, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, we're lucky. We have two suppliers of oil, which we where we collect regularly. One is called it's like a in Japanese they call themselves the country life convenience store, but it's basically all local food, and they do tempura. So they produce a lot of oil for us. So it's all vegetable based. So it's nice.
Wow.
Yeah.
And is there quite a process to make it into usable oil, or can you just put it straight in your engine?
Yeah, basically you let it settle and then you put it through like a sock, which is in terms of microns, it's down from a 10 microns, and then a second sock will be 1 micron. So basically you're just filtering the oil, and I have a system where you just pour it in and then it just drip feeds through, and that's it. So actually, it's not biodiesel in terms. Biodiesel is chemically heated. It's heated and then chemically changed to kind of copy the properties of diesel. But this is actually just waste oil. That's it, cleaned waste oil. So
Yeah.
no changes made.
That is wild. When I visited for a research trip to Kamikatsu, the zero waste town, they were collecting oil, cooking oil from all the residents in the community,
Mm.
and then they were using it in their farm tractors in
Okay.
agriculture. And I thought, well, that's a really great community effort to make
Yeah,
biodiesel, right?
that's wonderful. Yeah. So were
Yeah.
they were actually making the biodiesel then from that? That's good.
That's
Yeah.
what they said. Yeah. So they were
Yeah.
trying a bunch of different ways to reuse all of their waste in many different ways. So that was
Yeah.
wonderful to see. Now, one
Yeah.
of the things in the design we touched on a little bit last time was about insulation and how you imported kind of insulation called super quilt, which is
That's right.
reflective and keeps out the sun. Have you noticed, as everybody around the world is struggling with heat right
Mm.
now, have you found that this is very effective?
It is very, yes, extremely effective. We don't have air conditioning. My we do need fans. The time we need fans the most is during the night when the air is very still and there's residual heat in the air, because the house is always in the summer open, completely open, um, for the air to flow through. So it's only really midsummer at the hottest times that we have all like fans going throughout the house. But again, if we get the breeze, we don't need the fans. It just needs the breeze. And the trees that are now the deciduous trees we planted around the house, they're producing more and more shade, and with that shade will come cooler breezes. We hope. Well, it will. They'll be cooler as they get larger. So yeah, it's a very very effective insulation and very
Wow, that's
thin. It's
great.
extremely thin.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
you were saying you were researching a bunch of different insulation. Since talking to
Yes.
you, I had talked to people who remodeled houses, and some of them use sheep's wool from
Yes.
New Zealand as an insulator. There's a lot of different choices, but this one was a good one as you've experienced. Super quilt, was it called?
Yeah. Super quilt. Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
Yeah.
super quilt. Yeah, I've the problem with the choice is you never know how, unless you get the information from a Japanese site, you don't know how the it will perform with the humidity, Japanese high humidity. So I was a bit wary of the sheep wool, but yeah, if someone's using it successfully, that's great. That is a good resource.
Yeah.
But
Good.
the one problem with the wool would be that it will insulate in the winter, but not the summer. So you don't get
Oh.
the effect for the summer.
Yeah, that's
So
interesting. I didn't
yeah,
think about that.
yeah,
Definitely want something that's going to work in the heat, especially now everybody's struggling with climate change. So
yes,
it's nice to have these solutions. And if it's light and easy to ship to Japan or anywhere in the world, this is a good solution, right?
yes, absolutely, yeah, yeah, yeah. They do.
Louise, who's in New Zealand, says merino is great summer and winter. Yeah, that's what I've heard for clothing. I don't know about house insulation, but maybe, yeah.
Okay, yeah, yeah.
We've got about 5 more minutes. Is there anything we haven't touched on that you've been focused on recently?
Not really. The big thing was just the extra field at the back. That's going to be my summer project, really. Trying to change the soil, get it more drained, and possibly lower the acidity. But no, unfortunately, I don't. Not much else. No.
No, no, that's good. Yeah, if anybody's interested, again, I'll bring up your website, but also
Please,
maybe
yeah.
write a comment, and if anybody has specific questions, we can get back to you on those.
Well, doing this show kind of energizes me too, because probably the last blog. Well, yeah, maybe the last. I will now try to do more, add more to the blog. When I'm
Wow.
out in the garden, I always have these ideas. Oh, I should share this, or I should. But by the time I've come back in, that's it. I haven't taken the photos, and the idea's gone.
No, I get it. It's such a time crunch. You start doing something like uploading photos, you end up half the day on the computer for some reason. You get
Sure.
sucked into lots of other work, right?
Yeah. Actually, one thing I could say is this year I'm using waste, weeds more and more as mulch to keep the drive, walking areas clear of weeds. Rather than weeding, I'm now just covering them with mulch and then I move it along. And it doesn't take long for the mulch to actually kill, the weeded areas. And then, yeah, you don't have to use plastic, which a lot of people do. And yeah, it's a great way to keep weeding, like car park areas clear of weeds or stopping the weeds from gaining a foothold. So that's one thing
Ah,
I'm doing at the moment, more and more.
that's that's a great idea. It seems like you wouldn't have any weeds anywhere because of your goats. But I guess even with the goats, you still have some weeds sometimes, huh?
Yeah, and the goats don't come into the garden, so goats and gardens are not a good
Oh
combination.
yeah, they would eat all the good stuff too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. They're amazing. They know exactly the high value plants. So yeah, chickens too, actually.
Oh really? Oh wow, yeah.
Yeah, they
I
always
guess
always eat the things you don't want them to eat.
you've learned so much about keeping chickens and goats eating the stuff you don't want and
Mm,
keeping them away from what you want, right?
that's right. Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Well, thank you
Well,
so much, Iain. There was great insights and hopefully useful to people listening if you're in Japan or anywhere around the world.
yeah, it's a pleasure.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much. Yeah, awesome.
Thanks. Thank you so much.
And
Bye bye.
for those of you listening tomorrow morning, 9 a.m., we're talking with Paprika Girl about summer kimono fashion. So, Riki Okanda. So, join us again, same time tomorrow for some beautiful pictures of summer kimono. That'll be a nice change, right? As summer is now approaching.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Iain. Thanks, everyone, for
Thank you, Joy.
joining. Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much.